Welcome to the Freebirth podcast, a supportive space for people who are learning, exploring, and celebrating their autonomous choices in childbirth. Together, we'll unpack truths, share personal stories, and claim our ability to birth freely and intuitively. Here's your host, Emily Saldea.
Do you know it's your calling to become an authentic midwife? Do you dream of attending women in birth? Have you felt frustrated trying to be a birth worker in the system? Are you looking for a better way to walk with women in total integrity, supporting mother-led physiological birth? Are you dreaming of building a thriving, profitable business as a birth coach? Well, we are thrilled to announce that enrollment for our Radical Birthkeeper School is now open. Classes begin June 1st, so head over to our website and get the details. The time is now, and we need you to join us in this birth revolution. www.radicalbirthkeeperschool.com. Today I have my friend Simone, who tells us the story of her first baby who was born free outside under a tree in Mexico. Simone came to choose Freebirth from watching her own cat give birth and tells us how it all began with the thought, if a cat can do it, I can too. And so she did. Yay! This is, for me, a very long-awaited episode to be bringing into the world because, as I was saying before we started recording that you, Simone, have one of my most favorite birth stories.
Thank you.
And for a little backstory, I'll say that it's kind of cute how you and I met because you hit me up on Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And you had a free birth in Mexico, which we're about to talk about. And you were in Colorado and we went for a nice long walk and spent the day together. And that was the start of our friendship. Yeah, it was so great.
It was awesome.
It was last winter, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was roughly around this time.
Because it was cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, we walked around that lake. Yeah. All right, cool. So let's just go to where I usually invite women to start, which is take me to wherever you want to start. When I ask the question, where does your mothering journey begin? What's like the part of your life that pops up into your head?
Well, I feel like, I wasn't really thinking about anything pregnancy, birth. I honestly wasn't even thinking about um, having a baby, or that wasn't my mindset maybe 8 years ago or so. I think what started was, I guess, my journey of researching what pregnancy, birth, labor started when my really close dear friend of mine got pregnant around 8 years ago. And for me, it's like I love to research everything. Like I wanted to know everything. I wanted to support her. And in doing so, I had to kind of know a little bit about what it's all about, like just the craft of it. So that kind of led me into this journey of like researching what birth and labor was about. And I watched this documentary on the business of being born years back. I probably have different opinions about it now. I haven't seen it, but
Right. Totally.
but at least at that point, this is 8 years ago, so I was like 22, 23. And so I watched it and I was like, dude, there's different ways of birthing than just a hospital birth. And from that moment, I knew that if I were to have a child, I would not step foot in a hospital. It was just, I knew that that wasn't the right choice for me. I didn't know whether I'm going to have a free birth. Like all that stuff wasn't I wasn't thinking about that obviously because I wasn't pregnant at that time, but I just knew that I didn't want a free birth. Oh, and sorry, a hospital birth. And so I guess that led me to um, where I'm at now, where I was pregnant. I got pregnant, um, and that's when I started researching again. So from the moment where I'm like, my friend got pregnant till when I was pregnant, that's 8 years apart. I wasn't really thinking about it. I knew I was like researching, but like it kind of like faded off a little bit and it wasn't that important or relevant to me until I got pregnant.
And when you were pregnant, were you already living in Mexico?
No, I was actually in Ohio,
Okay.
in Ohio, yeah. When I got pregnant. And then, so when I got pregnant, the first thing was like, oh yeah, I was so excited. I was like, oh, I'm gonna have my mom there. We're gonna look at midwives. I knew didn't want a hospital birth, but I wanted a home birth. So I was like, oh, my mom can come. She had 2 babies. She knows what's going on. And I was so excited about it. But then after like really thinking about it and realizing that I'm such a people pleaser that I would like to please her or please everybody who is involved other than myself, or at least take care of them, making sure they're okay. I won't be focusing on myself.
Wow.
And that was the most important thing. It was that this is my chance to have the right birth, and this is my only chance to have the birth that I want. So I can't be nurturing and helping or trying to please somebody when I'm doing something that it's a once in a lifetime chance. You know what I mean? So at that point,
Yes, I
I
do.
was like, okay, well, I have to reevaluate this. I have to understand where I'm coming from. And so that led me to researching about how can I birth and what steps or what other ways I can birth.
So how did Freebirth even get on your radar?
Freebirth came into me by so while I was pregnant, we looked at midwives and I emailed a midwife and we met up with her and we chatted. We had like the typical, conversations and the concerns and everything. I was just seeing if she resonated with me and whatnot. And so what really stood out to me is that she said that she's a very hands-off midwife. She kind of allows the mother to do what she wanted to do. And she's there as like support and help and in case there's an emergency, right? So after the meeting with the midwife, I came home and I was like, well, what's the point of having a midwife? If she's going to be hands off, like I can do it myself. And I'm such like a controlling type of person. On top of that, I would like to, do it on my own because I'm so controlling.
Well, I guess the idea is hands-off midwife, and then unless you're one of those, rare women that actually you or your baby needs help or support, obviously the thinking then is that there's an experienced person there to step in, but
yeah.
as we know, that's not really how it plays out.
Yeah. And maybe she was the midwife that I needed to meet firsthand in order to build my confidence of being a complete, free birth or control of my birth. So when she said that, I was like, okay, well, there's really no need for her to be there in case there is an emergency. So my next step would be that, okay, got to research what may go wrong and what may happen. And so I'm going through all this list of things that may go wrong and what may happen. And a lot of the things that I was researching is pretty rare. And it doesn't happen all that often unless you're, are completely unhealthy and not in tune with your body. So yeah, I didn't
But
really.
even then, complications are still very rare.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
And so I wasn't really thinking too much of it because I knew like we as a society wouldn't be here with without this, I guess, instinct of birthing, this thing like I'm a woman. I know that this is what I'm supposed to do, really. So yeah, that went. The night that I met up with a midwife, I came home, I started researching, and I guess I came onto a blog, or I don't exactly know how I got there, but I was maybe writing like unassisted birth or like birth without midwives or things like that, and I led it. That led me to your podcast, an indie births podcast, and as I listened to all these stories, um, I was like, this is what it's meant to be. Yeah, this is how it should be. This is how I would love my birth to be. I am in complete control of what I needed to do, and I trust myself, and I'm confident in myself. And I am a quite stubborn person. So when I made that decision that I wanted a completely unassisted, autonomous free birth, that's it, you know. Um, and prior to all this, I didn't tell anybody. I told my partner that I didn't want to tell anybody about my pregnancy until I made a decision of how I wanted to birth. Because I wanted to make that decision on my own, and I didn't want other people to, come in with their opinions um, and their thoughts on how I should birth and what not. I knew that I needed to make my own decision by myself. And so when I made that decision, that's when, I was probably like 3.5, 4 months along. And that's when I, you know, started telling everybody that we were pregnant. But I, yeah, I didn't want anybody to have an opinion, I guess. I was kind of selfish
Yeah,
on that.
totally.
Um,
So how did your partner feel and respond to this this decision that you made?
he was for it. He was definitely for it. He's always really supportive of the decision I made. And partly because and people I get like my people laugh at me and like roll their eyes when I tell them this, but like in the midst of me researching and being pregnant, my cat was pregnant and had 7 kittens by herself. And that totally inspired me. I was like,
I
a cat can do this? Like we came downstairs, like we knew she was pregnant. I set her up with a birth box, with little comfy towels and whatnot. And
bet. Aw.
all of a sudden, we heard little kittens cry, and we came down and she already birthed 2 or 3 kittens already without like anybody there. So like if a cat who we raised, by the way, bottle fed because her mother abandoned her and we had her um, at least one, no more than 2 weeks old. So she was very domesticated. She thought she was human. So for a cat that was completely domesticated, that she had this instinct to birth on her own freely was a big, like, whoa, like this, like if the cat can do it, I can do it. And that was
I
really
love it.
inspiring to me. Um,
Oh, it's so good.
and it's silly to think about that. And I tell people that, and I get just like eye rolls and just giggles and laughs about that. But like, it's true. Like all
Well,
animals
people,
do that,
right. People don't want to remember that we're animals.
Yeah, exactly. We all are animals. So yeah, so that's part of like my decision to have a free birth is because of my cat. And so yeah, so
Okay, so then, yeah, what do you do with your pregnancy? And I know at some point you go to Mexico. When does that happen in your pregnancy?
probably around 4 months or so. We had some family drama. I won't get into it, but that kind of like led and pushed us to Mexico. We went to Mexico 2 years prior to us going there for when I was pregnant, and we fell in love with the city, San Miguel de Allende, and we completely just was in love with the city, and we kept talking about it. We brought it up several times, and when that family drama kind of pushed us away a little bit, we were like, what the heck? Let's just go to Mexico and figure it out. We always wanted to go. We always wanted to possibly live there. So we were like, why not? Let's just go and see. And so we went there, and I really didn't do anything with my pregnancy, to be honest. I was like my own doula. I'm an herbalist, so I drank a lot of tea, like nourishing, high mineral tea every single day. I ate really good. That was my prenatal, really. It was just like me taking care of myself. I did yoga in the morning. I took it easy, took naps, went out for walks and hikes and sunbathe. And I guess the push to Mexico really helped that, because
Right.
in the States, I wasn't able to do that. I mean, I did yoga and meditation in the morning and blah, blah, blah. But like, we were still stuck in the city. And I think I felt so much at home when I was in nature, you know. And throughout my pregnancy, before I decided where I wanted to birth and whatnot, and Mexico could just happen to be, what happened. But I kept thinking in my head that I wanted to be outside. Like that vision in my head was like, I wanted to be outside, maybe not necessarily the birth itself, but I knew that I wanted to be in nature, whether we did it in like a yurt or somewhere or a cabin or whatever, or go on a hike when I'm in labor. I don't know exactly. I wasn't really thinking anything like that, but I just knew that I wanted to be in nature and that I wanted to be near water for some reason.
Yeah.
I just had that feeling, that instinctual feeling that that's where I needed to be. And, to our benefit with all the family drama, it pushed us to Mexico into this little, little ranch. It's a little off-grid, off, off-grid little like rancho, so that was really nice. And we lived there we didn't live there, but we Airbnb'd that property prior 2 years
Oh,
ago.
right.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's so
so we
cool.
so we already knew the place, and when we happened to go to Mexico, we didn't really had a plan. We didn't know anything. We just knew that we were going to go to San Miguel and figure it out. And when we got there, the owner of the Airbnb that we went to 2 years ago, we found out that the house is vacant. He's in France, and that house is vacant. So we were like, okay, we'll rent it. So it was like perfect timing. It was completely what it should have been,
Hmm.
so I was so stoked. The minute that we crossed the border, we were so relieved and so happy. And when we got to
Mm.
San Miguel, and the fact that that house was vacant, the same property that we stayed at 2 years ago, and the place that we fell in love with was
Wow.
available. It was like, it was totally meant to be.
Well, talk about like taking the jump, taking the leap, and being caught and supported by the universe. That is
Yeah,
so
totally. It
cool.
was, and then the fact that we were there, everybody was supportive. I told them, like, I wanted a home birth. This is, this is my birth plan. It was pretty simple. I want a home birth. And everybody was like, yeah, like, here's a midwife you can talk to, or here's this person, that had a home birth. You can talk to this person. And everybody was super supportive, and maybe because it's still pretty regular and normal to have a home birth than a hospital birth. I don't know. It was just seemed like everybody was like on our side. I mean, definitely we had
Hmm.
some people who um had pretty strong opinions about what we wanted to do, but that's, it comes with the territory. It always is. There's always going to be some negativity, but yeah.
So
So
take me through the rest of your pregnancy leading up to the birth.
yeah, so so when we got to Mexico, we got linked up to this amazing birth worker, Allison. If anybody listening and living in San Miguel, you should link up to Allison. She's awesome. She's a birth worker. She's not a midwife practicing there, but she has dedicated her life um, doing birth work. And we linked up with her, um, and not necessarily to have her as like a midwife, but just so we can have more information. She offered a workshop or like a meeting where she can discuss like our goals um and what her thoughts are and whatnot. And so we met up with her, and the meeting was supposed to be like a couple hours, and it turns out to be like this nice therapy session for like 7 hours, 6 7 hours, just talking about everything. She went through like what can go wrong or what may go wrong, and we can how we can deal with it, like bleeding, and how we can deal with that, or like the phases of birth, where you can go into like the alpha and theta and beta phases. She went through all that, um, and and the minute I met her and I told her, like, look, I wanted a birth without any midwives or without anybody, she was like, go for it. Do it. And I think that was the first person who like was really just trusted me, trusted a woman to have such a birth like that. Um, which which I didn't have, that much of support. So that really was core to me and very motivating to me. Um, and so she also gave me a list of other midwives to link up if I were to choose to have one. And so after the meeting, I still felt the same way. I was like, I don't want anybody there still. But we had this huge conversation. My partner and I had this conversation, and he um, asked some very like tough questions, um, things that like I felt at that moment like he didn't really trust me as a woman to birth, but to his defense, he was just making sure this is the right decision, and this is what I wanted to do. And um, so I kind of, and one point, I kind of like second guessed myself a little bit, and so I I did a compromise, I guess. So I was like, yeah, let's just talk to a midwife and see, and if she's available, if she's willing, she can be on site in case something happens. But I just don't want her to be in like the actual birth. I mean, we have like an acre. We were staying on like roughly an acre, so there's a lot of space, so she can be on premises. And then if anything happens, then she can come. So that was the agreement. And so we did meet up one midwife, and we went through the interview and whatnot. And afterwards, I still felt like I didn't want her there, you know? And this was probably like a couple of weeks before Enzo was born. Um, so his due date, which is silly, but we can go and talk about due dates. But like his due date was like the 24th, I believe. So like towards like the end of February, he actually came early.
Oh,
But
right. I forgot about
yeah,
that.
he came early. So what my intentions were, I was like, the first week of February, I'm gonna make sure everything is okay, make sure like maybe potentially renting a birth tub, and getting all the materials, buy the plastics and like get the
So
towels ready
you
and
were
everything.
like 37 weeks?
Yeah, 36, 37,
Okay.
I think. 36, 37, yeah. Um, so yeah, so the first week I was like, first week of February, I'm gonna do all this. And he came on the second day. So we would not prepared. We were definitely not prepared. And prior to that, which is funny, prior to that, that meeting with the midwife, we didn't officially hire her. We were just having a meeting to make sure, like, you know, we resonate with her. So I was going through other midwives that I potentially may want to use, but I never got the chance because he came so early. But
He was
so
like,
anyway,
we're having a free birth, mom.
yeah. So basically, that was this like to my benefit. That's what I really wanted anyway. So maybe I was, um, lagging and procrastinating subconsciously because I truly wanted a free birth. Um, so what happened that day? Okay, so his birth was pretty simple. The day prior, um, I was meeting up with a bunch of friends and I wasn't thinking anything of it. I had contractions throughout the whole day. Simple contractions, but it wasn't painful or anything, and I had contractions prior. So I wasn't thinking about anything. And especially I had contractions after going on long hikes and walks. So and that day I walked the whole entire day. So I was meeting with a couple of friends and I walked the entire day. And throughout the day, I was having contractions and wasn't thinking about anything about that. And that night, I continued to have contractions, um, and we went to bed late, like I don't know, like midnight or 1 o'clock, and I was like, I couldn't sleep. I kept going to the bathroom every hour, half hour. I kept going, and I was like, maybe I drank a lot of water. I mean, I walked the whole day, so I was like, I drank a bunch of water, so I was probably, I wasn't thinking anything of it. So I was like, oh, whatever, but I just couldn't sleep. And so obviously my body was preparing for birth and, eliminating itself for birth. So I wasn't, now looking back, I knew exactly what was happening, but I didn't know at that time. So around like 5 o'clock happened. I got up to go to the bathroom again, and this gush of water came out of me. And I was like, oh, shoot, did I just pee myself? Like, that's impossible. I've been like going to the bathroom for the past 3-4 hours now. This can't be pee, like this cannot be pee. So my water broke. I smelled it, like I smelled the sheets and I was like, this doesn't smell like pee. And then that's when I had my big contractions. That's when I knew I was like, oh, okay, I'm in labor now. This is wonderful. So this is at like around 5 o'clock in the morning. I didn't bother to wake up my partner at all. Like he's sleeping. I knew that like once my water breaks and labor starts, it's not like I'm gonna have a baby within like, an hour. Like I knew like I had a lot of time. And so I didn't even bother to wake him up. So I just went to the bathroom, sat on the toilet, and just hummed to myself and just chanted and just meditated. I kept going from the bathroom to the living room, to the bathroom to the living room, and I just like was humming and chanting. And um, the sun rose and he came in. I don't know exactly what time. I wasn't keeping time. I was just really in my zone at that moment. And he came in and he was like, "What are you doing?" Like I was like, "We're having a baby." I think the baby's coming. And the look in his eyes was like, he panicked a little bit. He was like, "Oh shoot, we're not prepared. There's no midwives." Like he kind of was like freaking out a little bit. So I was like, "Okay, this is what you got to do. First of all, you got to do laundry. We need clean towels. So let's do laundry." Because we're off grid, so we don't have a dryer. So we need to like hang up towels to dry in the sun. So I was like, "That's the first thing you need to do because we just needed towels." And um, so that's what he did, and he texted the midwife. He's like, "Hey, we're in labor. Um, uh, are you available?" Or I don't know exactly what he said. He just texted the midwife, and she's like, "I'm out of town. I won't be back until 8, 9 o'clock that evening." And so my partner was kind of freaking out a little bit, and I was like, "Nope, this is happening. Like, who cares?" Like, I kind of reassured him. I was like, "This is fine. It's not a big deal. We're prepared. We watched a bunch of videos on Freebirth. We studied a lot. We watched a ton of YouTube videos on breech birth. We watched a bunch of videos on complications. We know it's okay. It's fine." Um, and so um, so my partner is such a he loves to like he's trying to fix things, you know what I mean? He's like getting the towels ready and he's trying to prepare and bring out the mattress into the living room. And at one point he was like, "Let's turn on the shower, and get you comfortable." But we ran out of propane that day. Yeah,
No.
so it just happened to be that day, and we have to like call in. So we got neighbors to call in and
Oh
get
my
the truck
God.
in to get propane in order for the water to be heated up. And so I'm like sitting because we didn't know this. So I'm like turn on the shower. I'm like sitting in this freaking cold shower with cold water pouring on me. I was like, this is awful. As he and our neighbors was trying to fix the hot water heater, not knowing that the propane is empty, and so they were
Oh
trying
my
to fix
God.
it. And I'm sitting here like so cold, like don't know what to do with myself. The contractions are getting heavier, um, and and so he came back. Oh, this is what happened. So my contractions actually stopped because I was kind of stressed out a little bit because I wasn't comfortable, like this is not how I wanted it to be. Like I was uncomfortable. And so my contractions stopped. And that kind of was another eye opener after, where all these other people, are in my face doing things, lifting my legs or whatever they do there. I can't imagine being in a hospital and having all these people running around me let alone like just my partner, just one person running around me. Like that completely was like, oh man, like it's really important to be comfortable. It's really important to be safe or have the feeling of being safe, you know? Um, so he's running around doing all these things. Um, and he came back and I was like, okay, you gotta stop. You're stressing me out. I don't have like my contractions stop because I'm clearly like I'm stressed out. It's fine. The water is fine. We don't need to be in the shower. I don't want to be underwater anyways. So like it's fine. It's not a big deal. Um and so he kind of backed off a little bit. Um and which was really helpful. He like went on his computer or something and did his own thing, and I kind of just laid in the living room and continue like chanting and continuing to go through my waves of contractions. Um, and then at one point he approached me and he's like, "It's really beautiful out. Why don't you sit outside? I can set up a blanket outside so you can like sit outside and sunbathe and feel the sun. It's gonna help you." And I was like, "Okay, do it." You know. And so he set it all up. He set like a little blanket up with
Hmm.
water, cups of water, and and everything, and which was beautiful because we had um probably like 3 4 days of just cloudy days. So this is like the first day that it was sunny um and warm, and so it was just perfect timing. um yeah, so I laid out, I got to this nice relaxation state. I was half asleep. I was getting kind of tired at that point because I didn't sleep at all. So I was at this like restful, still awake, but um, very restful state of mind. And then all of a sudden, I have this like feeling that I need to get on all fours. I was like, okay, I guess this is time. And Sean saw me. He was so the patio is kind of lifted up and he was on his computer. He looked down and saw me on all fours. He jumped up from his computer. I remember this so clearly. He jumped up and he's like, "It's time." Or something silly like that. It's like, the baby's coming, it's time, or
That's so
something so
cute.
silly.
Well, and I love that he was on the porch on his computer and you were just I love the image of you on the blanket outside under this tree by yourself, but he's there. He's just giving you all this
Yeah,
space.
he was just holding space because there's nothing that he could do. Like he came,
Mhm.
brought me some fruit, some tea, some water, occasionally, but there's really nothing that he could do, like he's just there to hold space, and when he's ready, to, he will know. Um, and so yeah, I got on all fours and I felt bigger contractions. I didn't measure my waves or time in between. I didn't have my phone near me. I didn't know, like I was completely in my zone. Like I don't know
Mhm.
like what time it was. I didn't know anything that was going on. I just kind of like woke up from this restful state of mind to get on all fours, and I knew that like, okay, this is time to push or time to you know birth. So
Hmm.
as I'm like on all fours breathing, he's setting up like the cameras and stuff like that. And it was kind of dreamlike. Like I really
Hmm.
don't remember what he was doing. At one point, maybe he was playing his didgeridoo or sitting. I honestly like don't exactly remember. It was kind of foggy. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I got on all fours and um, he I got like pretty intense waves, and I think by like the third wave I was breathing really heavily, and kind of screamed a little bit, grunted heavily. And I felt like everybody said the ring of fire or whatever. I felt that heat within me.
Mm-hmm.
And I pushed him out. I breathed him out, and he came out with his arms spread open. It was funny. And Sean was right behind me, and he caught him. And Sean, I didn't even see him. Oh no. Okay, so prior, I forgot this little detail. So when I got on all fours, Sean came. So after he like got up and was so excited, he walked in at one point and brought a mirror out, and he was like, I can see the baby's head, and he gave me the mirror, and I looked at the mirror and I saw his head. And I was like, "Oh shoot, this is happening!" Like that. That when I saw his head, I was like, "Oh, like oh shit! Like I'm having a baby! Like oh, this is real." And that's when my contractions got really heavy, and then I breathed heavily and I grunted and pushed him out. But I think seeing his little head and all the little fuzz on his head, I was like, that really motivated me, Um, yeah, so he came out, open arms, spread out. I didn't really see him until I turned around, and Sean was like, it's a boy, he's a boy. We have a boy. And yeah, and I just held him. I just like held him. I was completely at bliss. I didn't know it was like I didn't know anything else but like just pure happiness. Um, and after the fact, I was kind of giggling to myself, like workers were probably out in the garden, probably heard me screaming. Our neighbors were, I don't know where our neighbors were at, but maybe he was on the property working out on the garden or something. But I was just like laughing to myself, like they probably heard me like scream my lungs off. um, but I thought that was kind of like a silly thought,
Yeah,
but
totally. Well, that happens so often. People are like convinced that, I mean, I was convinced the entire neighborhood heard me and that my neighbors heard me. And then later my husband mentioned it to our neighbor and he said, no, we didn't hear a thing. And I was like, how is that literally
right,
possible? I was screaming for 3 days. How did you not hear me?
right.
Yeah. I feel like we go into some sort of little protective bubble, I guess, when that
Yeah, I
happens.
guess. Yeah. It's
And so tell us about the placenta being
Yeah,
born.
so yeah, he was born and I just held him, and I knew the placenta was gonna come. So I told Sean we had like this little birth box with like paper towels and like menstrual pads and just like my sewing scissors. I had these really sharp sewing scissors that I kind of set aside because we knew that we got to use it to cut the cord. And so, and we bought clamps. And so we had this little birth box to prepare ourselves, just like, just typical gauze and whatever, nothing like huge or anything. So I just told Sean, like, go get the clamps and boil it for, half an hour to sanitize it and get it ready. And as he was doing that, I I felt a little pressure, just the same as as I birthed him, like um, a little, what's the word?
Cramp?
Yeah, a little cramp on my stomach, and we had a bowl next to me, and I just kind of squat down and birthed the placenta into a bowl, and he came out, and he was like, um, he came out, and I was like, the placenta's here, and and we we knew that the baby still needed, we didn't want to cut the cord as soon as, like, I birthed this placenta. I knew that, like, the cord needed to be cold, and it needed to, give all its energy to the baby. And so I kind of just sat with my baby in the sun, holding him with the placenta next to me. We just sat there for, I don't know, 45 minutes, an hour. I really don't know, like a pretty long time, until I was like, okay, I guess I'm ready. I nursed him. Like, he latched on really quickly, easily. I nursed him and sat there, and we were just in total bliss, you know. Sean, my partner, just sat next to me, and we just sat staring at our baby. It was
That's
just
what should be happening.
it was just perfect. No one was there to tell us, like, hey, you gotta cut the cord, or hey, you gotta wash up, or hey, like, we gotta clean your baby. We were all bloody and all juicy with, with womb juice all over us, and our towels were, soaked, and it was just, off to the side in the grass. Like, we didn't care about anything, there was just complete bliss. And
What time of day was it?
he came at 3:23. And we really didn't know what time he came until, like, because Sean was recording. So we had to go through our phone and, like, timed
Totally.
it, So roughly 3:20, 3:23.
I love the image of you outside, all bloody on the grass, on a blanket with your baby and your man, and it being 3:30 in the afternoon, and just the warmth and the trees. And it's just such a beautiful image.
Yeah, and we didn't feel rushed to do anything, We didn't feel like we had to do anything, or like was forced to do anything, and that was like the most wonderful thing. Um,
Yeah.
and
So then how was your postpartum and breastfeeding, and give us a little overview of that before we close.
um, oh, funny thing before I get into that. Um, so when we cut the cord, Sean had to, like, go on to YouTube and figure it all out last minute, because we wasn't prepared for any of those things. So it was just funny to, I guess I want to mention that, because it was funny to me, the fact that he was sanitizing scissors and clamps as he was YouTubing how to
Totally.
how to clamp a cord and how to tie a cord and cut it. But yeah, I thought that was kind of silly and funny. Um, but yeah, my postpartum went great. It wasn't any complications. I didn't have any bleeding or anything like that. I didn't have any, like, pain or tears or anything. I went to the bathroom fine. I mean, obviously, it was, like, sore a little bit, but it wasn't anything terrible or bad or, like, anything like that. So that was wonderful. I just, took care of it, put a little cool, damp towel on it, and that was what I needed. Um, and so so in Vietnam, they have a 40 days. Also in Mexico, they have a 40 days postpartum time period where you kind of just sit and bond with the baby, do nothing, um, period, and so that's what I did. I did the 40 days of just, like, enjoying my baby and enjoying the sun and enjoying being with my partner. Um, and as we were doing our 40 days, um, Sean and our neighbor, and how I love him so much, but he and Sean built a temescal, which is um, a traditional, what do you want to call it? Like a
Like a
Yeah,
sweat
sweat
lodge.
lodge. Yeah, that's the word. So it's a traditional sweat lodge. So him and then Hal went out and got like chorizo, bamboo out in, the fields and like cut that up and built that. And we got fabric to cover it up. And on the next moon, we had a ceremony in the Temescal, and it was beautiful. Like
Hmm.
we set our intentions, and we just um, and set our and told the universe our appreciation and our love and everything. And they were there to our neighbors, and Hal and Mariana were there to celebrate with us
Aw,
and helped us through this journey. So
that is so special.
yeah, so it was really great. It was really simple. It was no complications at all, and that was what I wanted, you know.
Yeah.
And I was so thrilled. Really, I was so thrilled that the midwife wasn't there. Like I was so happy that she was out of town. Like I don't think I would have the birth that I would have um, if she was there. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would have what I wanted, you know? And so I was completely grateful for that. Um, and so it's funny because, like, him being birthed into this earth was so simple and easy, and his birth on paper, when we got our birth certificate and paperwork, that was like a whole new thing. Like I was
Oh yeah,
so
totally.
happy that Sean was there to take care of everything, because I was in such a mind state where like I just wanted to be with my baby and take care of him, and Sean was there. So this is where he needed to be in the whole birth. Like he
Mm-hmm.
was there to hold my space and be supportive during labor. But this is where a man should be. It's like you can do the paperwork and like deal with like the authority.
Go handle the systems
Yeah,
that you set up.
exactly. Because I would never, like, if it was up to me, he wouldn't have a birth certificate at this point. He wouldn't
Right.
have a passport, because I would probably just push it off to the side, because I don't want to deal with that type of stuff. I hate documents and I hate paper and I hate all of that. And Sean was awesome. He was there to like do all of that. So it was perfect. Like he did his part, I did my part, and we all did our part perfectly.
Mm, so good. Oh, I love it. It's such an inspiring story. And it's just, yeah, like we said before we were recording, the simplicity of it and your willingness to actualize your dream, and your own confidence and just following your instincts and your intuition, and it rendered a freaking perfect, beautiful experience.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah. And really, I had fears. So I'm not saying that like I had this perfect birth without any fears, without any concerns. I did have a lot of fears, and I did had times where I felt like maybe this is not going to be right. Maybe I,
Mhm.
you know, might.
Well, that's the not knowing,
Yeah.
right? Like we don't know until we know.
Yeah, and there are complications, there are risks that we were completely aware of. It's not like, hey, I want a free birth and I'm not, we did a lot of research. So sometimes when I talk about my birth, I feel like um it's not all this like happy, butterflies and rainbows and whatnot. We did take the work to research everything, and we knew that like I could have died, my baby could die, or we both could die. I was willing to take that risk. You know what I mean? Like, but I know that that was part of the journey of having a
But
birth,
also, Yeah, of course. And that we don't get out of that risk anywhere.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
nowhere where that risk goes away, right? And so, being alive is inherently risky because at some point we're all going to definitely die. And so, you know, I'm a broken record on this
yeah,
podcast about all of this, but yes, of course, there is inherent risk to every place of birth and every choice in birth, but the risk of death comes with every single variation of
yeah,
birth.
end of life, really. I could step out the
Right.
door after this interview and get hit by a car and die, you know? So, but
Yeah.
that's the risk of life, you know?
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah. Right. It's I really find for myself and for many women around me that are choosing this stuff, it's like, okay, yeah, we got that. And so what story do we want to tell?
exactly.
What story do we want to live? How do we want our life to go and to be? And by taking the reins of that and stepping into the co-creator realms, epic shit happens. We're able to manifest incredibly beautiful and sacred experiences, when you get past what for many is a paralysis of fear. And I totally agree. It's not that we're fearless. It's that it's an acceptable, element of being alive, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, and I knew that, like, I wanna write my story, and I knew that this is the only chance I can write it the way I wanted to write it. So, and
Yeah.
I wanted to tell a story to my son of how he came into this world, and I
Mhm.
wanted it a certain way, and I know that, like,
Mhm.
you know, being in a hospital, being with people wasn't what I wanted, you know?
Mhm.
Um,
Go
so
girl.
yeah.
I'm so proud of you. I love your story and can't wait to get it out there.
Thanks. Thank you.
That's it for today, everyone. Join us next week for another episode of the Freebirth podcast. Thanks for joining us, and remember, your body, your choice. Lots of love.